Welcome everyone on for another episode. On today's episode, alongside co-host Bianca Leger, we interview a licensed marital and family therapist, a LAADAC licensed advanced alcohol and drug abuse counselor working out of One Heart Counseling Center in Manhattan Beach, California. She specializes in addiction and recovery work, complex trauma, and family healing. Her therapeutic approach rests on a foundation of humanistic philosophy. She empowers her clients with tools and information to help them work towards their goals and build on their personal strengths. She's also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. She has her pink belt, combatives belt, and blue belt first stripe, and has been training for over 5 years. She's most recently co-authored her new book, Transforming Trauma with Jiu-Jitsu, with Jamie Rich, a guide for survivors, therapists, and jiu-jitsu practitioners to facilitate embodied recovery. Welcome to the Winner's Circle, Anna Pirkl.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys and your podcast and what you're doing as well.
Absolutely.
Happy to have you.
Very happy to have you. I'm so excited to chat with you about your new book and your hero's journey that brought you to where you are right now, doing all these amazing things in therapy, in the jiu-jitsu world and beyond, at home, as a caretaker and as a mother. As we were talking before this podcast hit record, I was just saying the goal of these conversations is to really uplift, inspire, and empower listeners to move forward with greater faith and belief in themselves on their hero's journey ahead. And as such, the questions are pretty positive. And this first one, especially, Anna Pirkl, right here, right now, what do you love about your world?
I think when my dad became ill, and he's very severely ill, I've had to spend a lot of time with him, and it has really made me have to slow down and be present to the little things, right? I used to ride down the beach, as fast as I could, and then you didn't see anything, and now I'm sitting next to him and he's in his wheelchair and I have to just sit and listen to the ocean and hear the waves and then notice the kindness of strangers. If I can't manage to get him up a really steep incline and somebody offers to help, and sort of all these little moments that I missed before because I was just moving so fast. And so, I think my dad being really ill has just made me become more mindful. It forced me to stop and smell the ocean. So.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Well, it's a beautiful answer. I'm just going to take a moment from myself and Bianca and just everyone listen. We're just going to send some good healing vibes your father's way over the air, and may they find him in a state that is well.
I appreciate that.
Lots of strength. Yes. And it's absolutely beautiful the way you describe this experience to be one of the best things in your world right now. I think just that is so inspiring, to think something that, people usually would feel is very challenging, and to see the beauty in that. Wow.
Yep. It exemplifies our greatest power, and that is the power of choice, the greatest of human freedoms. And you're in a terrible situation, and you can look at all the negatives, and I'm sure they come up and you observe them, and you can let them go, and then you see all the beautiful, all the positives, because there's always positives to be seen in any situation. And reframing things that they're happening for us rather than to us has helped me in the past, and it seems like it's a similar strategy that you're taking with this approach. So thank you for sharing that, Anna. I listed the various hats that you wear. You wear many hats, and in addition to all the hats, you're also really big into art therapy. One way we get to know our guests is to discuss their personal mission, and so that is the thing that overrides all that you do. That is your mission in the work you do as a therapist. It's your mission as an author, as a mother, as a daughter. What would you say is your mission here on this earth?
Oh.
What medicine are you here to serve?
You guys ask really good questions. You know, I mean, of course, to spread healing, but I think specifically in that to hold space for humanity. I use myself a lot in my therapy and in showing my struggles. And I really, really appreciate my Jiu-Jitsu instructors that do the same. You know, the ones that on the mat will talk about how they were panicked one day when the flap of somebody's gi was on their face, and yet they're black belt 4th degree. You know, I would love to make this world a little more humane, that we're all human, we all have flaws, we are all going to mess up. And it's not, you know, you're not a bad person because you messed up. It's what are you going to do with the mistake? How are you going to work on it? How are we going to get through it? And so, I don't know, I want to try to be vulnerable enough that I make room for everybody else's humanity.
Powerful.
Necessarily have anything to do with the art therapy, which you mentioned per se, but I mean, I guess I could tie it because a lot of people, when they think of art, they think of a product, right? Like, I'm gonna paint a boat. And true art therapy has nothing to do with product. It's all like process, typically, not always. I shouldn't shouldn't get black and white on us, but it's about process, right? It's about making this big blob on the page and then ripping it up and throwing it away ceremoniously. And you know, it's not what people typically think of art. And so again, I think room for the humanity, right? Draw me the ugliest picture you can, and try to get comfortable with the discomfort of, I haven't picked up a marker in 20 years. I'm not going to do this right. It's not going to look good. All I have is stick figures, right? And so challenging people to, again, allow the mistakes, allow the imperfection, get comfortable in the discomfort.
Right on. Well, I'm so excited to talk about your new book, Transforming Trauma with Jiu-Jitsu. But before we get there, I want to talk about your background as a therapist. So let's talk about types of therapy you offer. Let's start there, and then we'll rewind things back to see what brought you to becoming a therapist. So what kind of therapy do you currently offer? What are the different modalities?
Okay. Definitely the art therapy. And I've had to learn how to do that via telehealth, but it definitely is still very possible over Zoom. My current favorite is EMDR by far. I just really, really love the bilateral stimulation. And for any of you clinicians out there that want to get trained in it, my co-author is amazing. I got my EMDR certification from her, and it was just one of the best trainings I've ever been to. I'm a little more direct. It's not per se a modality, but because of my LADAC, the Licensed Advanced Alcohol and Drug Abuse Counselor, I think I find myself being a lot more direct than other therapists would in helping my clients, you know, find solution and really get their lives back in balance. And I'm very willing to go call them on their crap. Say, yeah, I'm not sure if that's true. Let's try that again. Kind of thing. But again, in a very humane way of using myself, you know, that I've done that before. You sound like me. Like, I'm not sure about that thing you just said there. Kind of thing. So yeah, EMDR. I'm trained in psychodynamic. Social action, psychotherapeutic, oh my gosh, what is it called? Psychopolitical therapy. I love matching art therapy with social action. So similar to Mothers Against Drunk Driving, right? They had this terrible tragedy, and then they found a place to put the pain, right? By taking action and trying to keep people safe. And so the beautiful thing about the art, right? Let's say that you're, I don't know, survivor of domestic violence, and you have some powerful messaging you might want to put out there to people that are committing domestic violence or people that are surviving it. And we can put on an art exhibit to send those messages. and we don't have to say your name, right? It's completely camouflage. And you might even show up to the exhibit and see how your art is impacting people. You might have a response piece where these people can respond to your art, and and you can see how your art maybe impacts the world or sends a message, right? So similar to Mothers Against Drunk Driving, it gives sort of this outlet for the pain or a purpose in the pain, right? And again, the art is so beautiful because I can still keep your confidentiality while taking the social action, so I can still keep you safe, kind of thing. So anyway, did I answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. And Bianca, do you have any questions to that? Or if not, I'm very curious for you to learn, how long have you been a therapist for, offering all these services?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. I actually was in a completely different career for many years. I was a market research executive, very successful for many years. And I had a health crisis. And then I decided to volunteer at a battered woman shelter through an organization called Free Arts for Abused Children. And I left every night with a smile on my face. And I think that was back in 2002. And I quickly then became interested in this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to leave my mark. I want to help. I want to put smiles on people's faces. And I was like, what is this art therapy thing? And it went from there. I volunteered at that battered woman shelter, I want to say 7 years, and then became a peer counselor through another organization. And I finally convinced myself that I might be able to get a master's degree in this. It's funny, I'm not a reader. I don't like reading books. But I literally, of course, to get your master's degree, end up reading books, to the ceiling and back kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
But it gets easier if you're reading something you're passionate about or that you love. So I managed to get through all that. And so, yeah, I should have that at the tip of my tongue, how many years it's been that I've been licensed. I want to say I graduated in 2012 from the master's program. So I apologize.
No,
keep that in my head.
That's great. I'm curious, for that transition from that successful career as a marketing recruiter to a completely different field. Was that an easy transition to make? What was your relationship with fear in that transition? Was there doubts, or was that an easy step in to a different world for you?
There were a lot of doubts. But the beauty in having a really bad health crisis, right, is that when you're kind of faced with, I think I might die, or, this is it, you're able to ask yourself really big questions like, am I wasting my time doing this for all these years? I had a very difficult childhood, and I had sort of a mom that kind of adopted me in a lot of ways. And I'll never forget, I was going sort of down a bad road, and she had said to me, Anna, success is your best revenge, to like my abusers. And for many years, I went after that full force. But I had defined success as money. I'm going to make as much money as I can. I'm getting out of here. Because I lived in a very poor place. A lot of people aren't familiar with Bridgeport, Connecticut, but it's not an easy town. And so I made a lot of money, but then when the health crisis hit, I really kind of shook my world and had me thinking about, well, what is success, right? What does that really mean? And what's the point of having money if, you're working 12 or 16-hour days and you can't even spend it? What's the point of all this? I'm making more money for, the Mars family because I work for, on Kit Kat product, or like, what's the point of this? And so I think that made it easy in a lot of ways because of the health crisis. But then I had a lot of fears that I was not smart enough to get a master's degree, and not talented enough, not patient enough, not compassionate enough to sit in a room as a therapist with somebody. So there were a lot of fears I had to overcome.
Oh gosh, I relate with this so much. The stories our minds tell us, and I think this is what makes us the expert, is that we know this. We got familiar with all those voices, and it makes it very relatable for all the people who come and needing support, because there's work has been done up here to kind of make sense of the chaos. Yeah.
I wish a health crisis wasn't required, right? To be able to come to these understandings. But sometimes I feel like we do have to get shaken,
Yes.
get out of our
So
box, like for the box to
dramatic.
loosen. Yeah,
Yeah.
something really dramatic.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I feel, and you can tell me your thoughts on this. Is I think you before this health crisis, you may have gotten whispers telling you, is this what I should be doing? And you didn't listen because you were having such success and you're making lots of money and things are going well in terms well in quotation marks for what society culture says, like this is what success looks like. And because you didn't listen to those whispers became voices, and those voices became shouts, and then you still didn't listen, and then the universe forced you to address that.
I definitely had one of those whispers. I'll never forget it. I had this thing. I wanted to shop on Rodeo Drive, wanted to get that $1,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I officially gave myself permission to do that once I hit 6 digits, right? I'm like, okay, 100 grand, we can do this. And said, I'm on Rodeo Drive and I'm like looking at these stores and I'm like, I don't want any of this crap. And I was like, okay, what was it all about? I don't understand. So yeah, there were whispers, but yeah, I was not listening. So I needed a significant wake up call.
Yes. Well, thanks for sharing with us that, and then also talking about the trauma you had to endure in your early childhood. And in order to be a therapist, or just to be a healed human or a healing human, right? I think that we're always healing. You have to address your trauma. So how did you deal with your own trauma?
Oh, many years of therapy. Many years of therapy. And I don't know if you want me to tell the Henner story or not. I'm sure you read it in the book, but
Yeah, please share.
I was a seasoned client of therapy, and individual therapy, group therapy, self-hypnosis, or what is it called? Hypnotherapy, EMDR. I mean, I had tried it all for multiple reasons. I wanted to heal myself, but I also wanted to make sure I wasn't passing this on to my child. And when I became a therapist, I definitely wanted to be very careful that I had cleaned house thoroughly. And so I felt really confident that my work was done when I started jiu-jitsu. And so I was pretty shocked when I became clear that one of the instructors was triggering me. And I really kind of hunted my soul for what is this about? Because this instructor hasn't done anything to me. He's fine. He's a little high energy, Henner Gracie. I call him, Hennergy. But he hadn't, he had definitely not done anything to me. And then it was one of those things in the middle of the night where I went, and I remember that he looked like somebody from my past, right? And I remember I looked it up and tried to find his face on Facebook, and it was all right there. I had worked here on the thoughts, but the body had its own recollection of the situation that it was not willing to let go of. And so, yeah, icky, sticky, angry, guilty, just gross. And so I quickly emailed Eve Gracie and said, hey, you must encounter this all the time. Like, what do you guys do? And she sent back the most beautiful email saying, we do. And though we need you to tell us what you need. Do you need less Henner, more Henner to leave you alone? Like, you let us know because everybody's different. And I'm like, oh, so respectful. And then so I said to her, I was like, no, just let Henner be Henner. Let's keep this going as it is. And eventually it came time to belt test. And I tested with another instructor, and I did so well that had I repeated a week later, I probably could have gotten really close to 100%. But I asked, could I test with him? Because I wanted to truly test if my body would actually know how to stay safe when I was really triggered. Like, this is legit. Like, now we're really fighting for our safety. And they usually don't have him testing, right? I mean, this is Henner Gracie, but they were kind enough to say, of course. Anyway, I was absolutely triggered. As soon as he walked in the room, I immediately did stop, block, frame. I'm like, back up. And Henner's like, Anna, do you want to get like a sip of water or something? And I'm like, no, let's get it over with. And I actually had a moment where I was completely almost blacked out in a way. I was hitting him and trap and roll. Trap and roll of all the techniques. I'm like, Anna. Anyway, I managed to pass. And this was one of the most profound moments of my entire life and my therapeutic experience, period. I pass and I'm sitting in my car and I pulled up his photo again. And I don't know, I almost like as I was speaking to him or something, I said, wow, you know, you can't hurt me anymore. And I forgive you. And then it hit me, wow, there was no way for my brain or my body to let go until it felt safe enough to let go, right? And after years of trying to work with clients and myself on forgiveness for people and things, not even that, you know, specific people necessarily deserve this forgiveness, but just about letting it go, you know, not carrying this around anymore. And I've read the books and shared all these great inspirational stories of forgiveness, but that was the moment. That was the moment where I could finally let it go. It dropped off and nothing, there was no sensation in my body whatsoever in seeing his face. It was just gone. And that was the moment I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to tell every client, every friend, everything that will be willing to listen to this, that they may need a full body corrective experience to finally let it go. Yeah. And then it wasn't long after that one of my guys from the Sober Living, a client there, had put me on to a podcast that Jamie had recorded, right? And so I reached out to her and said, I love what you said. If I could ever help you with anything, let me know. And then North Atlantic Books asked her to write this book. And she wanted to work with another therapist who was still on the mats because she kind of got her pink belt and she was done. But she wanted to make sure she was connected to somebody who was still sort of pursuing it and going deeper, and could write more about jiu-jitsu specific stuff. So anyway, that's probably more than you asked for.
No, but that's great. And that brings us to the next question. So you talked about once you had that aha experience with Henner and was able to forgive that person that perpetrated you, that victimized you, that gave you trauma. You wanted to shout from the rooftops and tell your clients, your friends, everyone about the power of jiu-jitsu. So let's hear that. Give us your sell on why people ought to train jiu-jitsu. What were you telling them, and what would you tell them now, those people listening here? Why is jiu-jitsu so powerful?
So if you've ever felt like a traumatic memory, some sort of trauma you've been through is stuck in your body, your body is going to continue to remember until it has found an answer, right? That's often why we have nightmares, because the brain is still trying to find the answer. And talking about it isn't necessarily going to convince the body of anything, right? And there are 3 components of therapy that are really needed in my eyes. And one is talk therapy, right? We have to stabilize top down, right? We need resources. We need to get life under control and realize what's going on. But then we have to work on the limbic brain, right? Things like EMDR to create the shift there and get trauma memories moved up. But then we also need bottom-up exposure therapy in my eyes, where you can have an embodied experience that can contradict or override whatever that memory is and literally give you an answer. So in a short sentence, jiu-jitsu can help you re-story the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
You have the original story. Let's restory that. Let's change that nightmare into a dream, into something really amazing. Let's transform it so it stops haunting you.
Very well said. But was that the reason what got you into jiu-jitsu in the first place? I don't know if it was. So yeah, tell us what brought you in those doors to the Gracie Academy the first time. What drew you in?
So I see a lot of adolescent girls and LGBTQ,
Hmm.
and the stats are not good when they go off to college.
Yeah.
And I would love for them not to come back to me for that reason,
Yeah.
if we can at all avoid it. So as they are launching off to college, I always beg the families, please, please, please get them some self-defense training. I don't
Yeah.
care what kind, get all of it. I do care what kind now, I have to admit. I really like jiu-jitsu for a lot of reasons. But anyway, because of that, I was always open to trying something new. I mean, give me your eye gouging, give me your Krav Maga, give it all to me so that I can make lots of recommendations and give my clients lots of options. And a friend said, hey, there's a free women's empowered self-defense seminar. And I was like, okay. So, you know, I went and I had no idea who Henner was or what jiu-jitsu was or any of that. And I had so much fun. I just laughed and giggled, and I left feeling like so strong. I mean, and looking around the room at those women's empowered seminars, it's like that Wonder Woman island where all the women are training, right? And
Hmm.
I loved every minute out of it. And as soon as I got my pink belt, I started combatives. I was training in excess of 10 hours a week. So it just was fun. It was so
Yeah.
much fun to me. It was just like playtime. And I think too, it offered something else in addition that I didn't realize, and lots of extra benefits that I had no idea would happen. But I mean, as a little girl, I really wasn't offered a lot of opportunities to wrestle and play physically in that way. I mean, I hung out with a lot of the guys, but we really didn't wrestle. I mean, we might play tag or something like that. And it was such a cool experience to, like, you know, to wrestle, right? You know, I describe it to people, it's almost like watch little kittens rolling on the ground, like, right, having fun. And that's kind of what we're doing. And it's so refreshing. I feel like so many adults out there have forgotten how to play, and their inner child is sort of like starving and
Mm.
you know, thirsty for something. And we just have so much fun where I train. I mean, we are giggling and laughing and being silly and having fun. It's just, you know, it's playtime.
Hmm. In addition to using jujitsu to help recover from trauma, like we just discussed, I've heard other benefits. So the community, right? The women and the partners you train with. I heard fun. It's fun. I heard it's play, and I heard self-defense. Why is jujitsu so good for self-defense?
Oh my gosh, I love it for so many reasons. I need another hour, please. Uh, but I think one of the reasons I love it most is that I don't have to become necessarily the bad guy to defend against the bad guy. Especially at my school, we really work hard on teaching our students how to take care of our partners. And so, you know, I can take you to the ground without hurting you potentially, right? And then I don't have to break your arm, but I can hold it in a space where I'm making you uncomfortable to try to stop you. And I love the spectrum of tools that it offers, right? Um, eye gouging, groin striking, self-defense that I was trained in for so many years, it just, at this point in time, seems completely illegit to me. I have so many kids come back from college and, you know, they were sexually assaulted by the guy that everybody knows,
Wow.
you know, that everybody's friends with, and that they actually liked prior to the sexual assault. So what are the chances, like, I'm going to want to stick my finger in Tom's eyeball and pull it out?
Mm.
And excuse me, groin strikes, really? Okay, maybe after 10 years of training and guys are good at protecting themselves and it's just not effective. I mean, if the person's intoxicated, strike all you want, right? They're not going to feel that pain compliance you're trying to deliver. So, you know, at my school, we teach the creepy hug defense, right? Where you swim under their arm so they can't wrap their arm around your waist, right?
Mm.
All kinds of really basic things that are not, you know, I don't have to learn how to break your nose or, you know, any of that. I don't have to become the bad guy to stay safe from the bad guy. Um, and I don't know, I think it's kind of, it's, you know, it's extra fun to not have to sink to that level. Again, we are just so silly about it. I mean, I remember when I first started training jujitsu, I would be somewhere and let's say somebody walked in that I determined was potentially a threat. in a restaurant or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And originally, when I first started training, I'd be like, okay, which, how would I take them to the ground, or what do I think I would use? And it was this puzzle for me, how I was going to figure out how I would stay safe from that person. And I was vigilant about it. I had sort of this, shoulders up sort of attitude. But then as the years went by, it became fun. I'm like, ooh, how would I take them to the ground? And how would I hold them there? He'll take maybe 250. Okay, but he's, so strong, like kind of thing. And it's just, again, back to playfulness. That's one of my favorite memories too on the mats. There's a guy who's really good at my school, Courtney. And I was rolling with him one day and I wasn't breathing. I was holding my breath.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you need to really breathe. And I'm like, I can't, how am I supposed to do that? And he said, sing. I'm like, sing? He's like, yeah, you can't hold your breath and sing at the same time. So I'm like, okay, I'll sing. But then just to be obnoxious, I chose Jingle Bells. Like, jingle bells, jingle bells. And I'm like wrestling him on it. Right? It's just nonstop silliness. We have so much fun. And I don't know, I want even that for everybody. I just want them to have fun. Anyway, I think I drifted again. I'm showing my ADHD. I'm not even sure what your original question was.
No, that's
Okay.
all right. It leads me to the next one. So another thing that I heard, there's a lot of communication going on the mats. And that's something that you emphasize a lot in your book. And so how important is communication in Jiu-Jitsu, and how does the communication skills you learned in Jiu-Jitsu transfer off the mat?
Oh, wow. What a brilliant question. If you want to stay safe on the mats, I don't know how you do that without communicating, especially as you get older. I'm 50.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My body is 50, maybe 60. I must communicate. My elbow is sore today. Let's avoid arm locking the left side. You can play with the right if you want. I need to go at a slower pace. What do you need to practice today? It's just going to keep you safe if you can communicate on the mats. And of course that translates into life. When Jamie and I surveyed women's empowered students who had been through the program, one of the things that we found over and over and over again is that after training Jiu-Jitsu, they were so much better at asserting boundaries in other parts of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
They felt safe enough and they had practice enough with saying, no, that doesn't work for me.
Mm.
Right. And they didn't need to escalate or start a huge fight, right, or anything like that. But they also were confident in, no, that's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And even stop, block, frame. It's like one of my favorite techniques because you see this huge transformation in the women from when they first learn it to, several months later. And it's this scenario where, right, there's somebody coming at you and you're supposed to assert your boundary. Hey, stop right there. Right. But you need to stop right there, very firmly. And with your body, you're sending messaging, right? And you're in base and all of that. But typically when the women first try it, they're like, stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we have to work on them to, no, it's okay for you to have a voice, which is another thing that I love so much in that training. Because Henner goes on to explain, you know what, if I'm a good guy and you say, stop right there, I'm going to go, oh, shoot, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to startle you. I just wanted to know what time it was. Right. And you'll back up. But he's like, if you're up to no good or there's something not okay with you, what's the matter with you? Like, what's your problem? It's information. Anyway, I love that modeling of like, what a good guy should look like. Because I feel like we have so much of the other type of modeling. I mean, just turn on the TV, right? And for him to say that and normalize that, yeah, no, guys with good intent are not going to have a problem with you asserting a boundary. That was a huge lesson, even for me as a therapist, to hear him say that, to hear a man say that to me. It's just eye-opening. But anyway, as the weeks go by and the women are like, hey, excuse me, back up, stop right there. Right. It's just so amazing. And then of course they are carrying that in their everyday lives as well. So
Absolutely. You also mentioned to seeing self-confidence, people's self-confidence transformed through jiu-jitsu. Can you share some stories about some transformations in terms of self-confidence and self-esteem you've seen through jiu-jitsu?
So, I mean, I'd love to give you client stories, but I don't have any releases, so I'll just use
Or it
myself
could be
again.
your own, yeah.
And I don't think I wrote about this in the book, so this is in addition to the book. There was a day, and I don't usually wear a lot of dresses. I like my combat pants. I like my rash guard. Anyway, for some reason, this particular day after training jiu-jitsu, I needed to wear a dress. And so I showered off and changed in my dress, and I walk out into the lobby in the jiu-jitsu school. And there were a couple guys there. I don't think I recognized them, but they gave me the once over. Right. And I recognized in that split second moment that normally I would now move as quickly out of there as I possibly could. I didn't want them looking at me. I felt vulnerable, like almost like I was on display or in some sort of like present package all wrapped up for them. There were all kinds of things about didn't like in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I realized in that moment, that's how I used to be. And I was standing there and it didn't bother me. And I'm like, look all you want. You want to follow me into the parking lot? Be my guest. I'd love to try my jiu-jitsu today. Right. And it wasn't, I don't know how to explain it. I felt confident. I felt okay to wear a dress. I realized too, even saying it right now, that there's all that, oh, she was wearing this, so she deserved it. Right. Garbage that we hear in this world. Right.
Yeah.
Like her shirt was short. She was asking for it, kind of nonsense, or she shouldn't have been wearing heels or whatever. Which is another thing that I just love about my school. They're like, no, wear your heels, honey. If they get to the ground, use them. Use them. Right. So yeah, it was just so refreshing to stand there in my dress and be like, look all you want. The good news in my school, they did the once over, but they stopped. They weren't, they weren't those kind of guys that were gonna linger and like not be looking at your face kind of thing. So I appreciated that. I think they were just startled to see me in a dress.
Mm-hmm. So many amazing benefits of training jiu-jitsu. There's the community, there's the fun, there's the ability to understand and set boundaries on the mats and in life, the understanding of the power of no and how to say no, self-confidence, improved self-esteem. And your book, when we talk about your book, is using jiu-jitsu to heal trauma. So let's talk about the book. Why did this book come to be? You said Jamie got approached by the publisher to write this book, and she brought you on board. So let's get into a bit more. What is this book? What can readers expect to learn from this book, and who is this book for?
This book has 3 audiences. It's for clinicians, it's for survivors of trauma, and it's for instructors. And trust me, that's not easy to write a book for 3 audiences, but I think we did it. It also was really challenging because as a therapist, I am just so keenly aware that everybody is so different, and trying to generalize as to what a person might need is just incredibly hard. And I always, whenever I talk in any of these podcasts, I always give this disclaimer, what I'm about to say is for informational purposes only. Like, don't interpret this as medical advice. And I hope that one of the things I send in the messages I send in the book is honor yourself, honor yourself, see what you need. And then here's a whole ton of checklists and things for you to help you examine what's right for you. So anyway, for the clinicians, I work to highlight to them why you might want to use this as a healing tool and all the things you need to think about in treatment planning. And I kind of go through the most conservative approach for the most trauma stressed client out there. And then I work really hard for the instructors to help trauma inform them about things that they would never know, right? About how a person might look when they're triggered and all the different things that can trigger them and how you might be helpful to them when they're on the mats, right? I mean, and the best instructors out there, very loving people making a lot of mistakes. They don't know, right? When you know better, you do better. And then of course, I tried really hard to just give a ton of information to trauma survivors that know nothing about jujitsu as to what really good quality instruction would look like, how you'd know that it's a safer school to be at, and what you should look for, questions you should ask, and really trying to empower them with a ton of information, so they can feel good that this is a positive decision for them. But yeah, it was not it was not easy. So I'm so glad I had Jamie to work with. Oops, sorry about that. And North Atlantic, has amazing editors that make us sound really smart. So that's awesome. And Jamie and I just basically divided and conquered the chapters. So that's how we worked it out.
And a challenge you had to overcome writing that book was you also wrote this book during the pandemic. The pandemic was a challenge you had to overcome. So let's talk about how you overcame that challenge of the pandemic on this book, but just how did you overcome the challenge of the pandemic in your personal life period, not only as an author, but just as a human?
So I was really disappointed when that all hit, because I'm fortunate enough to live in LA, and there's a jiu-jitsu school on every corner. And I was very clear that I had been to one, and I didn't feel it was fair for me to be writing this book without going to Crone Gracie's gym, going to Eddie Bravo's gym, to get all over the place and experience all kinds of things. And I, luckily enough, had the connections. The sober living that I used to work at, the owner there was a multiple degree black belt instructor at Crone's. And I had other clients who trained it, right? And they all wanted me to come and try it out. So I had this amazing plan and going to all these schools. And right as I was going to pull the trigger, everything got locked down. And of course, LA was one of the most conservative lockdowns. And then my dad was sick and I couldn't do it anyway. And the other thing that I didn't know is that the North Atlantic was also going to put the brakes at some point with my interviews. So I had actually saved a lot of my favorite instructors and things for the last. And then all of a sudden North Atlantic book said, no, we've had enough interviews. And I'm like, but I haven't spoken to Henner. I was like, what? No. So yeah, that I'm still sad about, because I really feel like I wasn't able to do the homework that I really wanted to do in writing this. So, I did the best I could. And I've had a lot of clients share a lot of stories, and I had a lot of amazing support. Alex Uwita is one of my favorite instructors in the entire world. He was an enormous help. He read the draft from cover to cover and caught me in mistakes and asked me questions. I have another friend, Mark Barentine, and I would call him up. Does this sound right? I'm saying this. And they were helping me. They have trained all over the place. So I basically did my best to use my resources that I had from the training I had done to date, and reaching out to clients, and of course the interviews. My family are introverts. I'm not. So my kid and my husband loved it. They're like, good, I don't have to interact with people. This is great. And I was glad actually that I was stuck, because again, I'm not a reader. I'm not a book person. And I kind of felt like, okay, there's nothing else for me to do. I guess I'll do this. Right. So it benefited me, because I felt like we're all stuck. I'm not missing out on anything. Right. I can do this. So pandemic.
Work to your benefit in many ways. You've mentioned a lot of helpers and allies that you've met along the way. One notable, of course, Henner Gracie, I'd say one of the greatest instructors currently teaching today, from a deep lineage. Like the Gracies, that's how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu became popular. It's from that family, from Hickson, Helson, Hoyce, and now Henner and Huron and Crone are all stepping in their grandfather and father's footsteps. So let's take a moment to acknowledge some of these helpers and mentors along the way. Who were they? And what were the main takeaways that you've learned from them that you've incorporated into your being? Let's start with Henner.
I think the thing that I appreciate most about Henner might surprise you. It's that he respects and empowers his wife's voice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Women's Empowered program would be what it is without Eve and Victoria Gracie.
Mm-hmm.
And it is my love. That program is something really, really special, and they work extremely hard in making it accessible to trauma survivors. I mean, they make sure that they're doing everything they can to trauma inform those instructors, and that they have sculpted the curriculum just for women.
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ is always welcome in any space there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Unapologetically, they're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's a lot of men in this world, and especially in the martial arts, that don't necessarily respect the voice of the females in the sport, right? Or in their lives, period. So the fact that they do, I think, has shaped what that school is. So I really appreciate Henner for that.
Mm-hmm.
Heron, his brother, I love his instruction. I've been in master cycle with him a lot, and he's a really good instructor. And he loves to kind of sit down and talk philosophy every now and again as well, which I really appreciate, because I'm with him in that jiu-jitsu is so much bigger than just some martial art fighting technique. It's philosophy that you can take throughout all of your life in so many different ways. Manage the distance, manage the damage is one that I have heard over and over and over again from women in domestic violence situations who learn that and then manage the distance, right? And we're able to step away. So anyway, sorry, I'm getting off track again. So Henner, Heron, oh my God, there's just so many good instructors. Guido, both Alexes. I have just had such amazing partners, so many amazing partners on the mats. I mean, it's hard to name them all, because if you've ever been to Gracie University, you know that our mat is huge. I mean, you can have as many as 200-300 students on the mat at once. And so, I am fortunate enough to train with, hundreds of people, and they have all shaped me, every single one of them. And so I hate to put one hero. Oh yeah, it was this person who did it. I really believe that the whole community has touched me, and hopefully I have contributed to them as well.
Beautiful. And what about Eve Torres Gracie? What you've talked a bit about her, but what were your primary takeaways that you've learned from her that you incorporate into your being as a human?
She is a celebrity. A lot of people may not recognize that. She was one of the original wrestlers in the Women's Wrestling Federation when it first came out. I mean, total trailblazer. Could have stayed in that celebrity. She's also, I think, has her master's in engineering. I mean, she's smart. And she's married to Henner Gracie. Okay, so she's a celebrity. You would never know it. She is one of the most approachable, down-to-earth people you will ever meet. She greets everybody as her equal. She walks into the class with a huge smile on her face, and she's just happy to see you, no matter what. And I realized over time what a gift that smile is. I mean, it really has kind of taught me too. Even on this Zoom, I think it's helped me. As I treat clients, I try as often as I can. Of course, if there's a sad story, I'm not going to sit there smiling, but I really try to engage people with a smile. I'm happy to see you. I'm happy to be here. And so I love her humility, yet assertiveness. It's kind of a beautiful mixture at the same time. I think that's a hard quality to find, to be both confident, assertive, and strong, but also humble and approachable and gracious. So yeah, she's all of that.
A huge role model for so many women and men, human beings, no doubt. Let's acknowledge one last person, and that's Jamie Marish. your co-author. What have you learned from working with Jamie? What
Oh,
do you most appreciate about her?
wow. You know, when I first found out about her, you know, that one of my clients had told me go watch his podcast. And I'm like, oh, okay, who's Jamie? And I went, oh, keynote speaker, has written like 9 books already. I'm like, okay. I mean, I was kind of even nervous. You know, I found the number and I just left her a message, but I was like, you know, I'm just a therapist, you know, but hey, you do something, you need help, let me know. And you know, she's just a power horse. And so again, very humble, very approachable, called me back the next day and we connected for like an hour on the phone. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm speaking with Jamie Marriage. But you'd never, very approachable, very humble, all those things. But the thing that I love most about her, and that, God, there's just so many, she is a trailblazer over and over and over and over again. She has invented a treatment protocol called dancing mindfulness that she teaches. She is about to come out with a book on dissociative disorders that is groundbreaking. She's working really hard on destigmifying the multiple personality disorder, right? We used to call it, now it's DID, and normalizing that we all dissociate, right? And you know, to one degree or the other, and going, and it might even be healthy at times. You know, like who wants to be present for this, you know, injection or right? Like, and that's okay. And the other thing that I love so much about her, and especially in that book, she works really hard on and elevating the voices of all kinds of healers. She interviews shaman. She interviews all kinds of gurus from across the world who aren't necessarily, you know, I mean, I love the Daniel Siegels of the world, don't get me wrong, right? But in the United States, we have sort of this thing where, you know, unless you have your doctorate and have written 8 books and you have all these controlled studies behind you, your therapy is garbage. And she's the complete opposite. She wants to elevate voices. She wants to include women. She wants to include all different backgrounds, ethnicities, and let us learn from everyone. I mean, and she will regularly state on an ongoing basis that gone are the days where therapy only happens with a therapist in the office. She's like, crap, that's crap. You know, therapy happens with the coach on the soccer field, right?
Mhm.
Therapy happens in the classroom with the teacher. Therapy happens with the jiu-jitsu instructor on the jiu-jitsu mat, or trauma happens, right? So anyway, oh my gosh, I appreciate her so much. I've learned so much from her too, just time and time and time again. Can't appreciate her enough. It's been a huge privilege, and North Atlantic Books really took a risk on me. So anyway, thank you for the question.
Yeah, absolutely. So much wisdom shared so far. I really appreciate it. And that leads me to my next question. It's a pretty big question, but just answer it whatever comes to your heart. And that would be through it all, through all the highs and lows, that is this journey of life. What would you say is the greatest life lesson you've learned on your path that you feel called at this moment to share with us and our listeners?
Um, I was asked to give a talk to Maricosta High School in Manhattan Beach on Red Ribbon Week, maybe 10 years ago at this point. And I was frightened to death as I was, I don't know, 40, 45, whatever, 40, 10 years ago. And I'm like, what am I going to say to these teenagers? They don't want to hear from me, right? What the heck do I know? And I was nervous. I was really struggling. I'm like, what am I going to say? I really want to help. And I realized as the weeks got closer to the presentation that I needed to talk about fear because I was having a lot of it. And I felt very much that a lot of alcohol and drug abuse is related to fears, right? Of not wanting to be present in our bodies because of things that are making us nervous. And I had liquid courage, right? Anyway, even the day before, I still hadn't kind of solidified 100% what I was going to say. Anyway, I ended up going in and talking to them about, I had 3 options if I was afraid. And I'm literally standing there shaking. I had a paper My paper's shaking. And I told him, I was straight up. I was like, I'm so afraid right now, guys. Like, anybody want to trade? I don't want to be here. I feel like you're all lions. You're going to, eat me alive. And I said, as I thought about today, I figured I have three options. I can run. I can easily call up. I'm sorry, I can't make it. You have other speakers, right? I could run, but I would feel guilty and crappy, and there'd be lingering crap from turning that down. I said I could numb. I actually talked to another colleague about the fact that I was so nervous about this. And I'm used to giving talks, but I don't know why, 2,000 teenagers in a room were intimidating. But and she told me to go get a beta blocker. It'll make you feel much better. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in and talk to them about not substance abusing while I'm high. I don't think so. And so I was like, okay, a second option to numb, not really a good, option. Whatever I'm afraid of is still going to be there. Probably got bigger while I was out numbing myself. And I said, okay, I have a third option. I can stand in my fear and shake. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stand right here in front of you and just shake. And then I ride the wave and it'll pass. Anyway, I gave the talk. I heard it was a good talk. All their cell phones were away. Yay! But I missed something. And I realized it when they asked me back a year or two later. And I gave the same sort of preemptive things, but I missed something. I realized that this got a lot easier to come and talk to when I realized that I could walk towards my fear. And so then I walked amongst them and I said, I love you, 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 I love you. And I said, if I were you, you'd be like, you don't know me. Like, how could you love me? And I'd say, well, I'm not getting paid to be here today, folks. I've come here to volunteer my time. And the only reason I did that is because I care about you. And man, if one of you hears something that I say and it helps you feel okay today and it helps you make good choices, then I win. And all of a sudden, when I walk towards you, but I know that it's in love, I stop shaking. I stop shaking. And I don't really know how it happened. I think it's because the first speech, by the time they had two assemblies, by the second assembly, I was feeling a little bit better. And I think that's when it hit me. No, I care about them, right? And as long as I walk towards whatever I'm afraid of with love, I'm going to be okay. I feel good about my intent. Like, I'm good here. And I think it's also connected to jiu-jitsu because it has that spectrum of tools. I can even love the aggressor, right? I don't have to gouge their eye out. I could keep them safe. And it's a story I have in the book. I suffered a lot from my caretakers. And in one of those, things that I experienced as a teenager, man, if I could go back in a time machine, take them to the ground and hold them there. How cool would that have been? Keep them safe, keep me safe. And maybe in that moment, we might have healed something. But anyway, I think that was a monumental moment. Did I answer your question?
I feel she did. I feel she did very well. Thank you so much. I think that was a great lesson, and that we could all take a lot away from, and that is walk towards fear from a place walk towards fear from a place of love.
Yeah.
It's helped me. Even in this podcast, I don't like the spotlight, but I'm like, Anna, it's not about you. It's about good information getting out there. And P.S. you don't earn any money off writing a book. But it's not about the money. It's, it's about putting the information out so other people can benefit. So then I remember that today. And it's like, okay, we're doing the podcast with an intent of love. It's all right. It's not about you, Anna. It'll be all right.
And just sharing about your hero's journey, because we're all on a hero's journey. And with that awareness, we could create change. And that's the first step of creating change. First, you need to bring awareness to what is happening, what is. Because when we don't know, what can we do? But when we bring awareness to our trauma, or we bring awareness to whatever, we can begin to heal it. We can begin to change it. We can begin to resolve what's holding us back. Thank you so
100%.
much for that. To close every interview, we ask the final two questions, and we're at that point. In 3 words, how would you describe the experience you are having on this earth? And those could be 3 words. It doesn't have to be a sentence, but 3 words that describe the experience you're having on this earth, and you can elaborate on what those words mean to you.
I think the first one would be awe. So joy, but next level, right? I know it's something I've tried to work on again with my dad, just sitting in immense mindful gratitude for whatever the moment is. Like, wow, look at this amazing beach. I sit in awe. I know another word that's helped me for many years has been curiosity. Sort of staying in a place of not knowing. And it helps me stay present that way too. And kids are really good at this. I'm very inspired by children, right? Because they're very curious, ooh, what's this? Right. And trying to even do that. Ooh, what's that? That smells good. Right. And using all our senses to just be curious about this world in a playful kind of way. And then the third word would probably be connection. I believe that we have to try to, well, let me back that up. My dad was in Ghana, Africa, because my brother was in Peace Corps there. And one of the tribal leaders said to him, you have to make your mark. And then I was listening to a Daniel Siegel talk, and he was talking about how we're all sort of candles in a way. We have sort of an electricity about us, and then we interact with other people. If their candle's almost going out, you can like lean over and light up their candle. And then in that moment, when you do that, there's kind of like a big spark, right? This magical. And I think there's even moments in this podcast together as we're recording this, we're like, yes, right? Like that, the electricity is being exchanged. And so I just really enjoy those moments of connection with other people. And when we're like, oh my God, me too. And something beautiful is happening versus all the craziness in our world right now of just sort of trying to like take each other down. One of the beautiful things I feel like about my school is, we have everything there. We have LAPD officers, we have people that might have criminal backgrounds that are changing their lives. We have every color, we have everything. And there is a mat at the front says, leave, check your ego at the door. And this is not a place for any of that crap. And we can all just be there and connect with each other. So I'm a big fan of that, and bridges and yeah. So awe, curiosity, connection.
Beautiful. My final question, we've played around with time and we've revisited your past and the things that got you to where you are today. And let's play with some more. And this time we're going to fast forward. We're going to fast forward into the future. We're going to fast forward into the future alongside an 85-year-old Anna Pirkl. Who is this 85-year-old woman? Where are you? Who are you surrounded by? What are you doing? And what is the legacy that you left here on your time on Earth?
Wow, I'm used to like the 5-year question or the 10-year, not the 8. Right? That's way out there. Okay. I would just hope that I was surrounded by people who were creating and growing, whatever that be. Jiu-Jitsu, art. I'd love to own like a barn, and then there'd be all this like art stuff happening inside, or maybe jiu-jitsu lessons. And yeah. One of the things that, my dad is technically terminally ill, so he's not going to get better. And I read this beautiful book, The Final Gifts, I believe is the title. And it's really kind of highlighted to me the beauty and the magic of that candle exchange.
Yeah.
Right. And that in that moment where I'm fortunate enough to have an energy to give to somebody else, I've given them my electricity. And even when I'm gone someday, I'm still kind of a part of them. And it's that concept, I think, is pretty Buddhist, has really kind of helped me find some peace. And, I hope by the time I'm 85, I will feel like, man, I have lit so many candles and been a part of so much magic that, even when I expire someday, I will still be here. Not that I need to live on, but this good energy, hopefully, that I've brought is still rippling out or magnifying with other people's good energy to create really cool things. So yeah, I hope that I've shared a lot of positive energy.
Mhm. So I want you to stay in this feeling of being this 85-year-old Anna, who's lit so many candles, surrounded by people, creating and growing. There's art, there's jujitsu. You're in a barn, there's a barn somewhere, and just lots of positive energy. So let's stick in this feeling one moment longer. Feel into that 85-year-old Anna's heart, feel into her being, because she is already there. She's already here and she's alongside you. And as we return to the present moment, she whispers a message to you in your ear. What does 85-year-old Anna say to you?
I guess something to the effect of, you've already won. You already won. You already, it's here. Heaven is here. Just be present and enjoy it.
Wow,
Stop
this
fighting.
is it. Stop fighting.
You've already won. Just stop and find and enjoy it.
I think that's advice a lot of us can take. So thank you, 85-year-old Anna. Thank you, present day Anna. This has been a blessed conversation. Bianca, I'll leave it to you for some closing words.
Anna, oh my gosh. I've been just listening to you and I feel so grateful that you took the time to connect with us today. In the beginning, you talk of yourself with so much humility, and when you talk about the people who inspire you, I feel like I'm looking at that type of person right now. So I just want to reflect to you what I see, that I'm just so grateful that there's people like you out there who go through very difficult things and then use that and show up and show us what a real hero is. Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you both. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And I love your work. And yeah, I'm going to keep listening to your podcast because it helps keep me inspired too. So.
Right on. Thank you so much. And for people wanting to connect with you, Anna, they can connect with you on Instagram at Anna's_art_therapy. They can find your counseling at oneheartcounselingcenter.com. Anywhere else. Oh, and they can buy your book, Transforming Trauma with Jiu-Jitsu, reading with Jamie Marich, at North Atlantic Books and anywhere books are sold. Anything else, Anna?
Just if anybody out there, especially jiu-jitsu instructors, are looking to become more trauma informed, I would love to be of assistance with that. Just gave a 6-hour talk and not long ago to try to help people do that. And you can find me on Psychology Today.
Right on. Beautiful. To close every episode of Welcome to the Winner's Circle, we make a choice to step on in for a digital fist bump. We're all in this together. This is it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a blessing. Signing out.